Hello, good day everyone. So for today, we will gonna be discussing about the international terrorism. But firstly, we have to define what terrorism is. So, according to Gawomi and Bhatia 2020, terrorism is a concept that is difficult to define. It is a menace that destroys much on both the individual and political fronts. So meaning ang concept ng terrorism is hindi siya ganun kadali i-define since every people in every country has their own way to understand what terrorism is. So next naman is, terrorism is the worst form of political violence and abuse of human rights. It is used by both states and non-state groups and organizations in support of various causes. So meaning dito, hindi lang siya ginagamit ng mga local groups or organizations para ipaglaban nila yung gusto nilang ipaglaban. It may be their beliefs, their religions, or what they want to achieve para lang mabigyan sila ng justice or para lang makuha nila yung gusto nila or yung pinaglalaban nila. So, pati government itself, ginagamit din nila itong terrorism. Like for example is yung Syrian Civil War 2011. According to my research, ang pagkakaintindi ko doon is nagkaroon ng war between the government and the citizens sa country nila since yung mga citizens is nag-oppose sila sa pagpapatakbo ng government nila sa country nila. It's like they want justice and fairness sa pagpapatakbo ng government sa country nila. So, ang nangyari, merong ibang mga citizens na nag-form ng mga organizations or groups that time na mag-oppose and mag-cause din ng harm sa mga government. So, the government, they have to implement some plans para lang ma-prevent yung mga organizations ng mga civilians or mga citizens within their country. So, instead of using the good way to prevent or to stop them, ang ginawa nila is they use force and then they tend to create fear and then they of course they has some violence since according sa sa na-research ko, meron silang mga may sugatan ng mga civilians, merong mga namatay. And then of course, meron ding pinaglalaban yung government that time, which is yung patigilin yung pag-oppose ng mga civilians and parang they let them be na itakbo yung government, yung pagpapatakbo ng ng country nila by the government. So, of course, ang din doon, ang target ng government is ang target talaga ng government that time is yung mga citizens, which is yung mga for intentions na yon is yun yung makaka-define sa terrorism. So, according to my research, madedefine mo siya as terrorism if they intend to create fear. So yes, the government intend to create fear para lang mapastop yung mga nag-oppose sa pagpapatakbo ng government sa country nila. They have motive tied to broader goals. Yes, so yung motive goals ng Syrian that time is mapatigil yung mga tao and let them be na itakbo yung continue yung pagpapatakbo nila sa country nila. Third is targeting of non-combatants. So, ang non-combatants, ito na yung mga civilians. So, like what I've said, ang target ng government that time is hindi yung mga pulis, sundalo, but instead, yung civilian mismo. So, fourth is violence or threat of violence. So, yes, of course, nangyari din ito. Since merong mga nasugatan and merong namatay. So, paano nga ba natin siya masasabi na international terrorism? So, basically, matatawag natin siyang international terrorism kapag yung nagplan ng pag-attack is nangyari sa country A. Tapos, ang nangyaring attack mismo or war is nangyari sa country B. So, let's say, for example, is yung nagplano is nasa USA, yung organizations na nagplano ng pag-attack is nasa USA and then nangyari siya sa Philippines. So, that is international terrorism. So, for the first question, why can't one country solve this alone? So, one country cannot solve international terrorism alone because terrorist groups often operate in many different countries at the same time. And then,
Countries also have different laws, intelligence system, and security agencies. Kasi it's often happens across many countries. Kasi yung mga terrorists kasi is may mga group yan sila and connections from other countries. Because of this, one government cannot control everything. Tsaka, if one country tries to stop them, they can escape to another country agad kasi ma-update sila. Yan kasi, ma-update sila kasi may connection sila sa ibang bansa. And kaya it's difficult for them for a single country to catch them. And it's a global problem kasi. Yan siya, kaya di siya kaya ng isang bansa. So, nangyari ngayon sa Israel is some parts are connected to international terrorism. But, I have another example. So, another example, if you're familiar with the 9/11 attacks, kasi mga terrorist groups sa 9/11 attacks are nagpa-plan, support system, and they were spread across the several countries. Hindi talaga sila nasusolve ng isang country alone because the terrorist network operates across many countries. Pero yung mga bansa ay pero if yung mga bansa is nagtutulungan, work as a team or together, share information and coordinate securities efforts, malulutas ang issue nito. But, pero kung isa lang, it's very difficult talaga. Kaya, that's why it's hard for one country na solve ang international terrorism.
International terrorism challenges state sovereignty because countries cannot solve it alone. But what exactly is state sovereignty? It means a country has the power to control decisions and security within its own territory. According to the United Nations, terrorist groups often operate across different countries, so governments must cooperate by sharing intelligence and coordinating security actions. Sa madaling salita, kahit may sariling authority ang isang bansa, kailangan pa rin nilang makipag-coordinate sa ibang bansa para ma-handle yung threat. A real example is the coalition of countries that worked together to fight Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, which had strongholds in Iraq and Syria. This shows that when terrorism spreads across borders, states cannot respond completely independently. International terrorism also challenges state sovereignty because governments often strengthen security to prevent attacks. But what happens when security becomes stricter? According to Bruce Hoffman in 2006, counterterrorism measures can sometimes affect civil liberties or the basic freedom of citizens. For example, after the September 11 attacks in the United States, the government passed the USA Patriotic Act to increase surveillance and strengthen national security. Ginagawa ito para maprotektahan ang bansa. Pero minsan naapektuhan din ang privacy at ibang freedoms ng citizens. In conclusion, international terrorism challenges state sovereignty because it crosses borders and forces countries to cooperate with others while also strengthening their own security. Sa madaling salita, kahit may authority ang isang bansa sa sarili nitong territory, the global nature of terrorism makes it harder for them to act completely on their own.
So now let's proceed to the next question, which is what type of global governance mechanism exists? So we have here the formal intergovernmental organizations, the IGOs, and which we have the United Nations, World Bank, International Monetary Funds, and World Trade Organization. So, firstly is ang UN or the United Nations. So, ang UN, siya yung nag-set ng global rules for fighting terrorism. And siya yung magawa ng way para yung mga countries mag-work sila together as a team. So, of course, they make sure that everyone's follow the agreed upon standards. So it helps the countries share information, train their security forces, and address the real root causes that can let terrorism grow. So parang siya yung nagagawa ng way para man lang ma-stop or ma-fight yung pag-atake ng mga terrorism. So in a way na nag-share sila ng information about the terrorist attack, and then parang siya yung nagakuha ng idea para makapagplano sila kung paano nila ma-counter-attack yung mga terrorism para man lang mapatigil yung pag-atake o yung war during the terrorist attack. So next is we have the World Bank. So ang role ng World Bank is ang mga terrorists kasi they often thrives in places na mahihirap, ganyan. Meron silang mga weak infrastructure, tapos meron silang unstable communities. So ang trabaho ni World Bank is mag-provide siya ng pera para may pang-develop ang isang country. Maka-develop sila ng schools, mapaayos nila yung mga roads nila, makabigay sila ng mga trabaho. So para man lang makaiwas attract sa mga terorista na atakihin yung country nila. So next naman we have the International Monetary Fund. So ang trabaho ng International Monetary Fund is gina-help niya yung country na maging stable yung economies nila. So kaya ang ginagawa nila dito is kapag kasi ang economy is weak sila and yung pag-manage nila is parang hindi maayos. So, parang ang nangyayari kasi yung mga terrorist, parang madali silang nakakalusot para makakuha sila ng mga pera sa mga bangko. So, ang ginagawa ng IMF is nakikipag-partnership siya, nakikipag-work together siya sa government para man lang maayos yung mga issues sa mga bangko para madali nilang matrack yung mga illegal money flows, and para ma-make sure na yung public funds is nagagamit siya ng maayos. So lastly is we have the World Trade Organization. So ang World Trade Organization, ang trabaho niya is, syempre kasi ang mga terrorists sometimes is ginagamit nila yung global trade para ma-export and import nila yung mga weapons na kailanganin nila sa pag-attack ng isang country. So ang ginagawa ng World Trade Organization is nagapastrict siya ng mga rules para ma-make sure na walang illegal trading na nangyayari. Parang nakikipag-work together siya sa mga countries para matrack nila kung ano yung mga illegal trading para mapatigil nila or ma-prevent nila yung pag-export and import ng mga weapons ng mga terrorists. So lastly, sa second bullet, we have the Financial Action Task Force or the FATF. So, ang FATF, ang trabaho niya is, siya yung nag-stop sa mga terrorists sa kuha ng pera sa mga bangko. So, ang ginagawa niya, nag-set siya ng mga rules and gina-help niya yung mga banks around the world na, i-identify or i-monitor yung mga customers nila, yung mga clients nila, and then, kung ano man yung mga suspicious na pag-deposit or pagkuha ng pera sa bangko is, ginatrack nila para man lang mapatigil nila kung ano man yung illegal transactions na ginagawa ng mga terrorists sa bangko. And then they also help each countries in a way na i-follow nila yung rules kung may kailangan bang i-improve yung bangko sa country nila para man lang mapatigil yung pagkuha ng mga pera ng mga terrorists para man lang ma-continue yung pag-attack nila sa country. And then they help countries to get better. So they provide training and support sa mga employees ng mga bangko, para man lang magkaroon sila ng strong system para madali nilang matrack yung mga illegal transactions na gaganapin ng mga terrorist. So, aside from that, they works across borders. So, ang pag-flow kasi ng pera is masyado siyang madali. So, ang FATF is, they make sure na makaspread sila ng information countries to countries para man lang ma-make sure na yung flow ng mga pera is stable and walang suspicious na transactions.
So next one is regional organizations. Regional organizations are groups of countries located in the same geographic area that work together to solve common problems like terrorism, security, and crime. They help member countries share information, coordinate policies, and support joint actions against terrorist threats. Example for this one includes the European Union, African Union, and Association of Southeast Asian Nations. These corporations among nearby countries to maintain peace and security in their region. So for the last one is international treaties and regimes. These are formal agreements between countries that establish rules and standards on specific global issues. Countries that sign these agreements commit to follow the rules and cooperate with each other. For example, include in Paris Agreement and the United Nations Conventions on the Law of the Sea. These agreements create international guidelines and responsibilities that countries must follow when dealing with certain issues.
So the fourth or the last question is a global cooperation effective? Why or why not? According to the United Nations 2023, global cooperation in counterterrorism is the collaboration of countries and international organizations to prevent and respond to terrorism through intelligence sharing, joint operations, and legal agreements. Since terrorist networks often operate across national borders.
The effectives are first is information and intelligence sharing. According to Interpol Counterterrorism 2022, countries exchange information about terrorist groups and planned attacks, helping authorities prevent attacks earlier. Ang mga countries ay nag-share ng information tungkol sa terrorist groups at possible attacks. Dahil dito, mas madaling ma-detect ng authorities ang threats at mas maagang ma-prevent ang mga terrorist activities. Second is joint operation and investigation. According to Interpol 2022, law enforcement agencies from different countries can work together to track and arrest terrorists across borders. So, ang law enforcement agencies ng iba't ibang countries ay nagtutulungan para mag-investigate at mag-capture ng terrorists. Mahalaga ito dahil maraming terrorist activities ang nangyayari across borders ng iba't ibang bansa. Last is capacity building and tactical assistance. According to UNODC 2021, developed countries provide training, funding, and technology to strengthen the counterterrorism capabilities of other nations. So, nagbibigay sila ng technology sa iba't ibang nation para mapalakas ang kanilang counterterrorism capabilities. So, sa tulong nito ay mas mahalagang mag-prepare ang security forces sa pag-prevent at pag-handle ng terrorist threats. In short, global cooperation is important and generally effective in combating international terrorism, but its success is limited by political, legal, and resources differences among the countries.
So, even though may effective siya, meron din siyang limitations. First limitation is different legal systems. Magkakaiba ang laws ng bawat country about sa terrorism, kaya minsan nahihirapan silang mag-cooperate. For example is, a person may be considered a terrorist in one country,
pero sa ibang bansa hindi siya illegal, kaya hindi siya maaresto agad. Second is national sovereignty concerns. May mga bansa na hesitant mag-share ng sensitive intelligence o payagan ng ibang countries na makialam sa kanilang international security. Example is kapag ang terror suspect na nagtatago sa isang country, ang government minsan ayaw nilang papasukin ng foreign forces dahil gusto nilang sila mismo ang humawak ng operation. The last is political tensions and lack of trust. Kapag may political conflict o hindi maganda ang relationship ng dalawang bansa, nababawasan ang willingness nila na mag-share ng information. Example of this is kung may alam ang isang country tungkol sa possible terror attack pero may conflict sila sa ibang bansa, possibly hindi nila agad ibinabahagi ang information. That's all.